What do you do when you feel inadequate? You come up with excuses. A friend once told me, when you need an excuse, any excuse will do. But the reason we come up with excuses is not to convince other people. The reason we come up with excuses is to convince ourselves. Today we hear the story of God appearing to Moses in the burning bush. And he tells Moses to go to Egypt to deliver his people from slavery. But Moses comes up with every excuse in the book. I'd like to encourage you to refamiliarize yourself with this story. You can find it in Exodus chapter 3 and 4. So pause the video, check out the story, and then come back. So God tells Moses to go to Egypt and lead his people out of slavery. Moses is not too excited about this task, so he has all kinds of excuses. But for every excuse that Moses has, God has an answer. Finally, Moses has no more excuses, and we get to the heart of the matter. He just doesn't want to go. He says, "Lord, please send someone else to go." He just did not want to do it. In the end, though, Moses accomplished an amazing thing, or we should say God accomplished a mighty deliverance through Moses. The Exodus event is often viewed as the most significant event in the entire Old Testament. And there are some powerful lessons we can learn from Moses about when we feel inadequate towards a task that God has given to us. Here are 7 lessons to learn from Moses. The first is this: God can use anyone. When God called Moses, Moses was 80 years old. You're never too old to be used by God. If you're still breathing, God has got you here for a purpose. On the other side, the Apostle Paul, when speaking to young Timothy in 1 Timothy 4, verse 12, he says to Timothy, "Do not let anyone look down on you because you are too young." It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your education. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what you possess, what your experience is. God can use whom he chooses to use. A second thing, God will use your past experiences. The first 40 years of Moses' life was spent in the household of Pharaoh. No doubt this time had taught him some valuable lessons about what he was about to do, and that being God's representative before Pharaoh. The next 40 years of his life he spent as a shepherd, keeping watch over the flock. This time taught him patience, and no doubt he would use the lessons he learned as a shepherd while shepherding God's people through the desert over the course of the next 40 years of his life. The truth be told, God uses our past experiences to shape our current and future ministries. The best people to minister to those who face addictions are those who've overcome addictions. The best person to help someone who is struggling with their marriage is someone who has overcome the same struggles in their own marriage. It says in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 that God comforts us in our sorrows so that we can help others with the comfort we ourselves have received. A third thing, while Moses was coming up with all of his excuses, God asks Moses a question. He says to Moses, "What is that in your hand?" The answer was it was a shepherd's staff. A shepherd's staff wasn't all that exciting, but God tells Moses to throw that shepherd's staff onto the ground, and that shepherd's staff becomes a snake. Then Moses picks it up and it returns again as a shepherd's staff. A great miracle that God performed through that shepherd's staff. Here's the thing. What is in your hand? What are the things that you possess? Think of your physical possessions, your home, your car, maybe your computer. Think about the skills, the gifts, the talents, the abilities that you have. Maybe the skill or talent you have is photography. Maybe it's in construction, woodworking, computer programming, or music. Whatever that it is that you possess, dedicate it this day to be used for the glory of God and for kingdom purposes. And God will take that which you give to him and dedicate to his purposes. He will use that in miraculous ways, just as he used Moses, the shepherd staff of Moses, his staff, in a miraculous way. A fourth thing, time with God will put things into perspective. Think about this mountain where the burning bush took place. It was on Mount Horeb. Another name for Mount Horeb was Mount Sinai. This is the same mountain God would later give Moses the 10 Commandments. This is the same mountain where Elijah would flee to and where he would hear the still small voice of God. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed in life, but nothing in this world helps to put things into perspective than spending time with God. When we're overwhelmed by the problems of this world, time with God will show us just how insignificant those problems really are compared to the amazing God that we serve. When we kneel before God, we can stand before anything. The next thing, ask for help. When Moses tells God, Lord, I'm not very eloquent, I'm not a very good speaker in the past or in the present, God's response to Moses is to send his brother Aaron. Here's the thing, we're not always adequate in every area of life. But that's why God gives us others for this journey called life. He never intended for us to go on this journey alone. There are times when I'm inadequate. There's times when you are inadequate. And that's why God gives us each other. But it's hard to ask for help because we're made to be vulnerable. So know this. It's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's more than okay to ask for help. It makes you feel good to help others out, return the favor, and let others help you out. Yet another thing, God gives us His Holy Spirit. When Jesus ascended into heaven, He said, I am with you always to the very end of the age. And one of the ways that He is with us is through the gift of His Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit empowers us to go beyond what we are capable of in ourselves. Through the Holy Spirit, we can accomplish more than we could possibly imagine. Take that step of faith and see what the Holy Spirit will do through you. Last but not least, your inadequacy points to God's all-sufficiency. The first lesson we learned today from Moses was that God can use anyone whom He chooses. And the less adequate you feel, the better place you are to be used by God, because you'll get less of the credit and God will get more of the credit. It'll be recognized that you were not the one who accomplished it, but that God accomplished it through you. When we think about the Exodus, we know that it wasn't accomplished by Moses, but it was accomplished by God through Moses. It's not Moses who gets the credit, but ultimately God who gets the credit. So let your inadequacy point to His all-sufficiency. Hey friends, hope you learned some valuable lessons here and can apply these to your life. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Have a great day. Bye.